Hey everybody, this is TJR, and I'm back to do a follow-up to my unboxing of the Neil Young Harvest 50th Anniversary box set. And today, I want to talk about all the content. I want to talk about the bonus CDs, the DVDs, the book, and even a little bit about the album itself. But before I begin, I do want to just preface and mention that in my previous video, both Superfan and myself were in a very joking mood. And yes, I was a little bit surprised because you're watching me check this out for the first time. I was a little bit surprised by how small this presentation was. I was expecting it to be a little larger. But even in the middle of that video, I realized I have nothing to complain about. If you pre-ordered this, you got this for probably less than 40 bucks. Mine was about 37 bucks roughly. And for that price, this is a huge bargain. And if I didn't make that clear in the last video, I want to make it clear in this video. After I watched the video as I was editing it, I realized there are probably going to be some people who will take the joking around the wrong way and think that I'm dissing on Neil Young or I'm dissing on the album or on this package. We were just in a joking mood, so I put that little disclaimer. Anyways, I just wanted to bring that up again for those of you who might have taken the video a little too seriously. Sometimes I'm not always stoic, I'm not always serious. I do like to joke around and have some fun. Okay, so with that said, let's talk about all the content. And we'll start with, of course, the beautiful textured box. I did see some reviews of the vinyl set, and it's also a very beautiful package too. So first of all, let me talk about the remaster. Now, in the video that I did previously, I did mention that the last remaster was around roughly 10 years ago. Someone did comment that it was 2009, so I was pretty close. And yes, this is the 2009 remaster. As I suspected, it was not a new remaster, but this was fine for me. My previous copy of Harvest goes quite a ways back. My previous CD copy, well before that remaster. My copy is an 80s CD copy, so that shows you how long I've had that. So by comparison, this was an upgrade for me. And I really appreciate the whole mini vinyl gatefold reproduction here. It's very nice. If I want to, I can place this with the rest of my CD collection with my other Neil Young albums that are on CD, place it right there with it. It's really nice. But the other nice thing, of course, is that in spite of its size, this whole set, this whole box can sit right with my CDs. Oftentimes, because box sets are sized differently, they don't fit with your CDs. You have to put them somewhere else. But anyways, though, so I was very happy to get this. I love the packaging, and I really enjoyed the enhanced audio quality of the 2009 remaster. Moving on, next I want to talk about this disc here. On the vinyl set, it was just a 7-inch. Here it's just a bonus, CD EP. Harvest Outtakes. Now, I've heard some complaints about how skimpy this is. It's only 3 tracks. We've got Bad Fog of Loneliness, Journey Through the Past, and Dance, Dance, Dance. Of these 3, Bad Fog of Loneliness is the only track that I had never heard before. I enjoyed that track. I also enjoyed the other 2. I especially was tickled by the very traditional country western version of Journey Through the Past. I still think I prefer the version that appeared on Time Fades Away better, but I really did enjoy hearing this very traditional country western version. It was a nice, it was a fun way to experience that song in a different way. And so, yeah. Now, getting to the criticism, though, why only 3? Why wasn't there more? Well, you might say to yourself, maybe this is all he had from these sessions. But if you watched the DVD, you know that there were alternate takes of the barn sessions, the sessions that he did at the Broken Arrow Ranch. There were alternate takes of those. Why not include some of those alternate takes? Why not include some of the work in progress performances, even if it's a performance where it goes up to a point and then they stop and then they talk for a bit. I personally still enjoy those. I enjoyed those type of work in progress tracks on the Beatles box sets. Not everybody does, but I've certainly enjoyed those. So yeah, I think he could have put a little more. As to why he didn't, I guess the answer is because he's Neil Young. And he just didn't want them released with this for reasons that only he understands. And that's his choice. Regardless, though, I enjoyed these 3 tracks. And I think that considering everything else that this set came with it, it's still a great set. And I'm very pleased with it all. Let's move on here and talk about Neil Young, BBC in concert. We have not 1, but 2 discs on this. We have the CD of Neil Young, BBC in concert, February 23rd, 1971. This is the CD. And then we also have a DVD of the performance. And this DVD is actually, yeah, these 2 exactly replicate each other as far as the song list, the track listing. Now, to my surprise, it turned out that I had already heard these tracks before. Full disclosure, I've never been a bootleg collector. Don't ask me why. But a number of years ago, my older brother, who was a huge Neil Young fan, bought a bootleg CD copy of Time Fades Away. And this is because at the time, Time Fades Away was not commercially available. Unless you found like a used, old vinyl or 8-track copy on eBay. You just couldn't get it. But he purchased this bootleg copy on eBay. And as a bonus, it contained these performances. And so we had heard those before. And I'm still glad, though, to actually get these on CD and DVD because this is improved audio quality over that bootleg. So that's a plus right there. And also the DVD. I get to watch the concert. So with that said, I have one criticism, and I can't understand why this is the way it is. When I played this DVD here in my Blu-ray player and listened to it, I noticed that the audio would distort at certain peaks. I had to really turn the volume down to try to minimize that. And when I watched it, I thought, I don't remember the CD tracks distorting when I first heard the bootleg. I actually watched this first before playing the CD. So I pulled out the CD, listened to it, and I was correct. These tracks that are on CD, which is the same as this, they don't distort on the CD in the way that this does. And I'm kind of baffled by this. Why, if it's the same audio, why do the tracks distort on this DVD and not distort on the CD? And I think I heard a couple other people on the internet say the same thing about how the audio distorts a bit. Now, it's not horrible, but it's there. And, whereas I can crank this up, I can't crank this up because that distortion becomes more obvious. So I have to kind of turn it down a bit. So if anybody knows anything about this, I'd appreciate any insights that you might have about it as to why this is. It baffles me that, did anybody not notice this? Did anybody not say, hey, we should try to, fix the audio on this? Or if the audio sounds good on the CD, why not just put it in place? It's the same audio. It just doesn't distort. So I'm puzzled by that. But with that said, the video quality on this DVD, this BBC concert, is outstanding. It looks like it was shot yesterday. It looks like I walked into a time machine and, stepped back into the past, a journey through the past, so to speak. And I'm back there, 1971, watching Neil Young. Don't ask me what I'm doing in England, but I'm there. So at the end of the day, love this CD. Glad to have this better audio quality from the bootleg copy that my brother shared with me all those years ago. I'm glad to watch this DVD. I just wish the audio didn't distort the way it does, and I'm just puzzled by that. Still, though, very enjoyable. This brings me to the real, what I think is the real unique gem in this collection here. And that's the 2-hour documentary Harvest Time, a film that was shot during the making of Harvest. And what shall I say about this here? I remember reading about how Neil Young was not happy with his first album. He felt it was too overproduced. He felt that that aspect of it drained a lot of life out of the songs and the performance. And he said never again. And he has always tried very hard to capture the excitement of live on his albums. You know, run through the song a couple times, try to get that one good take, and then move on. And just use studio production for the finishing touches. You know, overdubs, maybe some extra instruments, but get the energy of that live performance. And this DVD certainly does attest to it. A good portion of it is shot at his barn studio, where basically they set up the instruments in the barn of his ranch and set up the recording gear and recorded a huge amount of the tracks on this album. Now, there are some exceptions, of course. Both Heart of Gold and Old Man were recorded in an actual real recording studio with a different set of musicians. Some of them were on the barn recordings, the Stray Gators as they were dubbed. Some of them were not. And so that is why those songs have kind of a different feel when you compare them, kind of a different feel to them. But it certainly does attest to Neil Young's philosophy of trying to get as much of it down live as possible, something that he has kind of always, pretty much always stuck with all of his albums. Now, that's not all you'll see on this DVD. At one point, the film cuts from the band performance in the barn, performing Alabama, to a cutaway of Neil Young in the recording studio with Stephen Stills and David Crosby, laying down the backing vocal tracks on the same song, and then cuts back to the band finishing up that session. And the audio is timed in such a way that it's seamless. You'll also see Neil in a different recording studio with the London Symphony Orchestra as they work on A Man Needs a Maid. And I've listened to interviews where Neil Young talks about how they had to do a number of takes before they could get the timing right between him and the orchestra. And during this part in the documentary, you do get to see the difference between the classical music world and the rock music world. In that classical musicians, it's what's on the sheet music, and they follow that. Whereas with the rock music world, it's more a groove feel between the players and just following that pulse. And so it took a couple times because Neil Young opens the song first on piano, and they have to follow him, and he performed it live with them. And once again, it's that whole live vibe. It took a couple tries before the conductor could realize, okay, here's how I signal the orchestra so they start at the right beat with him. And then from there, they can, follow from that point forward. So kind of an interesting exploration into the melding of these two worlds. There's a World was, to me, obviously easier because the orchestra starts on beat one at the same time as Neil Young, so a lot easier for them to probably record that song. Throughout this documentary, there is no real narration, only just some very necessary title cards to tell you who is who and where they are. And occasionally the filmmaker will ask Neil Young some questions and ask some of the other players some questions about the songwriting and recording process. The only thing I can really fault this documentary for is that maybe it meanders a little bit on its 2-hour running time, but I'm not going to complain too much. Getting to see this was just a real gem of a time capsule. Being able to follow Neil Young and the musicians he's working with, the Stray Gators, and watching this recording process, it's priceless in my opinion. And yeah, This is just a real gem. Don't know why he waited this long to release this, but I'm really glad I got to see this. Finally, of course, let me just wrap up with the book. Again, in my unboxing video, I talked about how small this was, and it did make me think maybe I should have gotten the vinyl version because you get an LP-sized book. It's certainly a lot more impressive to look at. But I did read the whole book. Great book, and gives me even more insight into the songwriting and recording process of the album, especially why those two tracks, Heart of Gold and Old Man, sound quite a bit different from the majority of the rest of the album, and you get a lot of insight into that with this here. But great book, lots of great pictures, never before seen in many cases, and throughout all of this, just a great time capsule. It's wonderful in the video content to see Neil Young, no pun intended, but to just see that 70s, youthful version of himself. I appreciate the fact that Neil Young is still extremely productive as a musician and as a creator. I know that there are a lot of people out there who don't like his newer stuff at all. I'll admit that some of it I've not been a fan of, but there has been some that I thought is really good and equals what he did during this classic period. It's just a bit different because artists do grow and change. But I admire his work ethic. He's continually creating, continually producing music. Robert and I both feel the same way about him. I think Robert is probably a bigger fan than me, though. So overall, I think this was a great package. And after the disappointment of what he did with After the Gold Rush, which I'm not going to get into here, I talked about it in my unboxing, I'm really glad to see him do it right for this album. I honestly wish he'd do a redo on After the Gold Rush and give that album as good of a box set treatment as he did with this set. And excuse me, I'm trying to put the cover back on gracefully, but I'm not doing a good job of it. I wished he had done as good a job as he did with this one. And if there is a box set for Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere, his second album, I really hope he does one like this. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the contents here. That's my review of the 50th anniversary box set. Let me know your thoughts on all of this, good or bad. I'll be curious to read your comments. As always, if you like these videos, be sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a video. And now, a big thank you to my patron supporters. Patron supporters receive exclusive weekly videos not available here on the channel. And if you'd like to be a patron supporter, please go to patreon.com/TJR the Original. Make a monthly pledge. You'll also get your name in the credits. And if you can't be a patron supporter, that's okay. I understand. But you can still show your support by clicking like and by watching these videos to the very end and sharing them with anyone you think might be interested in them. Mostly, though, I just want to say thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it. And I'll look forward to talking to you in the next video. Enjoy the music. That's what it's there for. Take care, everybody. Talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.